My mom called me a fool and announced, "You can't live here anymore, now it's your stepsister's room." Then my stepdad shouted, "That's right, this is place for our family." My mom giggled, so I just gathered my things and left. 4 days later, they came begging. My stepdad was going crazy. My mother was crying and screaming, "Please don't do this." I was 16 when my mother stood in the doorway of my room and told me I was stupid. Not in the middle of an argument, not out of frustration. It wasn't a slip of the tongue or something I misunderstood. She said it like it was a fact, like it was something she'd been holding in for a long time. "You're stupid, Kevin. You can't live here anymore. This is your stepsister's room now." I just sat there for a second. I blinked. The words felt strange, like they were bouncing around the room before they landed. This wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a grounding or a passive-aggressive comment. It was a command. And behind her, almost as if waiting for a cue, Greg, my stepfather, came into view with a can of cheap beer in one hand and a stupid grin on his face. "That's right," he yelled from the hall. "This is a place for our family." My mom giggled like it was a sitcom punchline. I don't think I even reacted at first. I just looked around. My room. My stuff. My bed. The posters my dad helped me hang when I was 10 were still on the wall. My shoes were still lined up under the desk. It didn't feel real. But I knew better than to argue. I got up, grabbed my backpack and duffel bag, started throwing my clothes in. I grabbed my laptop, a couple of notebooks, headphones, charger. I even grabbed my dad's picture off the nightstand without thinking. My mom didn't say anything. Greg drank another beer and went back to the living room. That was it. A year earlier, I never would have thought this would be my life. My dad died in a car accident when I was 15. He was everything to me. Honest, smart, always fixing things, always working. My mom cried a lot the first few weeks. Then she stopped crying. 3 months later she brought Greg home. Said she met him at a community barbecue, like it was fate. He moved in the next week. Brought his daughter Haley, who was 18 and basically just trying to keep her head down until college. She wasn't the problem. We didn't talk much, but we didn't fight. She was just there. Watching. Greg never worked. He said he was between jobs, but he never looked for one. He sat in the garage, smoked, drank, and talked about the good old days. He spent money like it came from nowhere, but it came from my mom, who had started dressing differently, acting differently, like she was in some kind of midlife reboot. She stopped mentioning my father. Took down his photos. Sold his tools. Even his favorite chair vanished. It took a year, but she finally kicked me out. I walked the 2 miles to my Uncle Ray's house. Didn't even call first. I had nowhere else to go. He opened the door, saw my bag, and just said, "Come on in." No questions. He gave me leftover spaghetti and let me sleep in the spare room above his garage, where he kept old fishing gear and some old car parts. The next morning I told him what had happened. He sat quietly, arms folded, listening to every word. Then he asked, "You know the house is still in your mother's name, right?" At first I didn't understand what he meant. Of course it was. My father had left her everything. The house, the car, the money. But Ray leaned in, his eyes sharp. "She's responsible for the house. Not Greg. Not anyone else. And your father's will had conditions. I helped write them," he explained. "The house was in a trust with clauses to protect me. If my mom remarried and tried to push me out, there would be legal consequences. Uncle Ray had papers, names of lawyers, everything. Time to get even," he said. I didn't say anything. I just sat there and tried to take it in. At first, I wasn't sure I wanted revenge. But then I remembered how my mom had laughed. The way Greg had looked so proud of himself, like he'd finally taken over. 4 days later, Uncle Ray called. Not to them, no. To the trustee. To the lawyer who had helped draft the agreement. He got the ball rolling. Told me it wouldn't be long before they realized what was coming. And just like he said, 4 days later they showed up on Uncle Ray's porch. My mom looked nothing like the woman who laughed at me while I packed my things. She was crying, her hair a mess, screaming my name like it would fix everything. Greg was behind her, red-eyed and angry, still clutching the beer can like it was the only thing he had left. She screamed, "Please don't do this." But it was already done. The papers had been filed. The process had begun. And Greg, well, Greg was about to lose a lot more than just his beer fridge. That was just the beginning. Uncle Ray wasn't messing around. By the time my mom and Greg showed up on his porch, he'd already met with a lawyer twice. I didn't realize how fast things could move until I saw the printed documents on Ray's kitchen table. My mom's name was all over them. So was mine. So was the word breach. The house had been put into a trust after my father died. I never really understood what that meant. Turns out it meant my mom couldn't just throw me out like garbage. The house was technically hers to live in, but not to control as she pleased. If I was kicked out before I turned 18 without good reason, it triggered a clause that would allow for foreclosure. Simply put, if I was out, they were out. I watched through the window as they pulled up. Greg's old pickup was coughing smoke, one of the headlights was out. He parked like he was ready to fight somebody. My mom ran to the door as if she could cry her way through it. When Ray opened it, she tried to push past him. He didn't move. She started screaming my name. Said she didn't mean it. Said she was sorry. Said it wasn't fair. I stayed upstairs, watching from the little window that overlooked the driveway. She looked distraught. Greg didn't. Greg looked pissed. Uncle Ray stepped out on the porch and crossed his arms. He didn't yell. He just calmly told her what had happened. That the trust had been violated. That the lawyer agreed. That it would go to court and the outcome wouldn't be favorable to the freeloading alcoholic she'd married. That's when Greg lost it. He came storming up the stairs, beer still in hand, spewing words like, "Nonsense, and you people are ruining everything." He tried to shove Ray, which didn't work. Ray is a big guy. He has spent most of his life lifting engines and scrap metal. He didn't flinch. Greg stumbled back, dropped his beer, and started yelling so loud that the neighbors came out. "This is my house," he yelled. Ray smiled. Not a happy smile, more like the kind you get before you break something expensive. "No, Greg," he said. "It never was." My mother collapsed into one of the chairs on the porch, sobbing. Greg went back to the truck and kicked the door hard enough to dent it. Haley was in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. She didn't say a word. I don't think she even blinked. After they left, Ray looked at me and said, "Now we wait." A week later her lawyer called Uncle Ray. Tried to negotiate. Said maybe we could work something out. Said maybe they could let me visit the house, keep the peace. Ray laughed and told him to read the papers again. There would be no compromise. The court had already received the petition. Then the real chaos began. Greg started showing up drunk in random places outside Ray's store, even at my school one time. Security had to escort him off campus. He kept screaming about how we were stealing his life. How he built this house. The man never paid a single utility bill. But suddenly he was the victim. Mom started blowing up my phone with texts. Apologies, Bible verses, pictures of me as a child. Then guilt trips. Then threats. Then apologies again. I didn't respond. Ray said not to. Let the process play out. Haley messaged me once. Just one line. "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. The court date was set. The house would be appraised and prepared for sale. They were going to lose it. And the closer it got, the more unstable Greg became. My mother was cracking under the pressure. She missed work. Got into a fender bender in the driveway. Cried in public. But Ray and I just kept going. Every document, every meeting, every signature brought us closer. And the best part? They still didn't know about the second clause. Ray said we'd wait until the last day to tell them. The one detail that would make this more than just revenge. The one that would make it permanent. And I was ready. By the third week, Ray's mood had changed. He was on the phone constantly, dealing with lawyers and inspectors, coordinating everything like he was planning a military operation. I was still going to school, still pretending to be a normal kid in front of everyone, but every afternoon I came home to new updates, appointments my mom missed, angry voicemails from Greg left on the store phone, legal notices sent to their doorstep. The best part was that they didn't see the big picture. They thought they were just fighting to keep the house. They had no idea that there was a second clause in the trust, one that even the lawyer had initially overlooked until Ray caught it. It said that if my mother remarried and her spouse benefited financially from the property while I was still a minor, the entire estate could be contested. That meant everything. The savings, the car, the house. Everything she had from my father. And because Greg hadn't worked a day, because he lived there rent-free, drove my dad's car, used his tools, and even listed the address on his unemployment paperwork, that counted. It all counted. We had proof. Ray had photos, dates, even a signed delivery slip for a set of tires Greg had ordered and installed with my dad's old shop credit. He was going to bury them. Ray waited until a week before the final court date to tell them. He called their lawyer himself. He said he was going to file a motion to expand the claim to include the entire estate. I watched him make the call from the store office. When he hung up, he turned to me and just said, "They're about to go nuclear." He wasn't wrong. That night, Greg came back to the store. This time he didn't stay outside. Ray was out getting parts, and I was alone in the office, working on a paper for school, when I heard the crashed glass shatter, hard, like a bottle thrown against metal. I looked at the monitors. Greg was inside the fence. He'd smashed the side window of the garage and was stomping around like he owned the place. I grabbed the old crowbar Ray kept behind the door and didn't even think about it. By the time I got outside, Greg had knocked over a shelf of hubcaps and was yelling my name. "Get out here, you little bastard!" I didn't say anything. Just stayed in the shadows until he turned around. Then I called Ray. "Greg's here." He broke in. Ray didn't hesitate. "Lock the office. I'm calling the cops." 6 minutes later, I heard the sirens. Greg was still throwing things as they pulled up. He tried to fight the first officer. Bad move. They tackled him into a pile of junked exhaust pipes and zip-tied him there. I watched the whole thing from the roof hatch, crouched behind a vent. When Ray returned, Greg was already in the back of the cruiser, red-faced and screaming. I thought Ray was gloating, maybe taunting him. But he just stood there with his arms crossed and watched him get chased away. The next day my mother came alone. She didn't knock. She just stood outside the store, looking lost. I stayed inside while Ray went out to meet her. I could hear her through the window, begging, talking fast, swearing she didn't know Greg would do such a thing, that she missed me, that she just wanted to talk. Ray let her talk. Then he told her she had to find a new place to live. Told her the application had been filed. Told her the only reason we didn't go after damages was because I asked him not to. She collapsed right there in the gravel. That weekend the sheriff came to serve the eviction notice. Haley opened the door. She didn't fight it. She just nodded, took the papers, and shut it. Greg wasn't home, he was still in jail, charged with burglary, vandalism, and assaulting a peace officer. The court date came. They didn't even show up. The judge ruled in our favor. 2 weeks later they were gone. I came home from school one afternoon, and Ray drove me to the house. It looked smaller than I remembered it. Emptier. The lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks, and one of the porch lights was broken. But it was quiet. We walked through the house, room by room. My old room was bare. Haley had taken down her posters. The walls still had faint square outlines where my shelves used to be. The living room still smelled of beer. Ray gave me the new keys. "It's yours now, kid." But I didn't smile. Not really. Because the truth was, I didn't want it anymore. Not yet. And even though they were gone, something told me I hadn't seen the last of Greg. Not by a long shot. I didn't move back in right away. Even though the house was legally mine and Greg was out of the picture, something about the place felt off. It wasn't just the silence, or the stains on the carpet, or the lingering smell of smoke in the garage. It was the memories. And not the good kind. Uncle Ray didn't pressure me. He told me I could stay as long as I wanted. I kept going to school, kept living with him, sleeping upstairs over the shop, the faint sound of tools clanking every night when Ray worked late. But about a month after we won the case, something changed. I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I wouldn't answer it, but this time I did. It was Haley. She didn't start with a greeting, she just said, "We're leaving." I didn't say anything. She went on, "We're moving out of state. Greg's on parole. Mom's looking for work in Idaho." I almost laughed. "Idaho." Then she said, "I don't blame you. I wouldn't have stayed either." After that, the line went dead and I never heard from her again. 2 days later, Ray and I drove up to the house. They were gone. For real this time. All their stuff was gone. Even the porch swing was gone. The only thing left was a plastic bag of junk mail taped to the door and a ceramic frog from my mother's garden that she'd apparently forgotten. I threw it in the garbage. I started to go back, little by little. First to clean. Then painting. I repainted every wall. Tore down the curtains. Opened every window. I scrubbed the baseboards, patched holes, replaced lights. It took weeks. But little by little, the house began to feel less like theirs and more like mine. Ray helped me build new shelves. He taught me how to install a ceiling fan. He even brought in a used flat-screen TV from his store and helped me install it in the living room. By the beginning of summer, I was ready to move back in for good. The first night I slept there again was strange. Quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Disturbing quiet. I kept expecting to hear Greg stomping around downstairs, or the sound of my mom's voice calling someone's name that wasn't mine. But the house remained silent. Until it didn't. 3 weeks after I moved back in, I was cooking dinner one night when I heard someone at the back door. Not knocking. Just standing. Breathing. I peeked through the curtain and froze. It was Greg. He looked worse than ever. Thin, nervous, pale. His eyes didn't look right. He wasn't drunk. He was something else. Something twitchy and dangerous. He didn't see me. He just stood there, staring through the glass, his hands in his pockets. I didn't move. After maybe a full minute, he turned and walked away. No knocking. No shouting. Just gone. I called Ray. He came right over and installed cameras that night. We filed a report, but since no real crime was committed, the police just shrugged it off. Still, I didn't sleep well for a week. Greg didn't come back. But I knew he wasn't finished. 2 months passed. School started again. I got into a rhythm. I kept my grades up, stayed out of trouble. People stopped asking questions. But one afternoon I came home to find a manila envelope taped to the front door. Inside, a handwritten letter. No signature. No return address. All I needed was the first line to know who it was from. "You think this is over? You stole my life." He went on about revenge, about how I'd made a fool of him, about how he had nothing left to lose. And at the bottom, a line scrawled in thick marker. "See you soon, kid." Ray took the letter straight to the cops. They took it more seriously this time. An order of protection was issued. Patrol cars began to drive by the house a little more often. I wasn't scared. I was just tired. Tired of dealing with someone who had no intention of ever letting go. Tired of my mother pretending she hadn't chosen him. Tired of the whole story still haunting me. So I made a decision. I called my mom. For the first time in almost 6 months. She picked up right away. Before she could say anything, I told her I knew about the letter. Told her Greg was threatening again. Told her if anything happened to me or Ray or the house, I would press charges hard enough to put him in jail for a decade. She didn't deny anything. She just said she talked to him. And I said, "Don't bother. This is the last time we talk." Then I hung up. Because the truth was, it wasn't just Greg who had lost everything. She had too. After that call, I blocked her number. I wasn't interested in hearing excuses or apologies. If she still chose Greg, she could live with the consequences. I was done giving people chances they didn't deserve. For a while it was quiet again. I kept going to school, kept up with my part-time job at the grocery store, kept the house in shape. Ray checked in every few days, sometimes bringing dinner, sometimes helping to fix things. He never mentioned Greg again, and I appreciated that. We both knew it wasn't over, but neither of us wanted to say it out loud. Then the front window shattered. It was a Wednesday night. I'd just gotten home, dropped my bag by the door, and was halfway through heating up leftovers when I heard the crash. The sound was sharp, violent, unmistakable. Glass exploded across the living room floor. I hit the floor fast, my heart racing. I crawled into the hallway and called first Ray, then the cops. I didn't move until the flashing lights painted the ceiling blue and red. They found the rock still in the middle of the carpet, wrapped in cloth with tape around it. Inside, another note. You think you're safe? You think this house will protect you? You're nothing without your daddy's money. Ray appeared before they finished sweeping the glass. He didn't say a word. Just stared at the rock, then at the window, then at me. We both knew it was time to end it. The next day, we filed an official restraining order violation. 3 nights later, Greg was arrested outside a liquor store, drunk and resisting. They held him overnight. Then they let him out. We weren't surprised. That's when Ray got serious. He went back to court. Not just with our lawyer, he brought in a private investigator. We hired someone to track Greg's movements, every interaction, every message, every time he got too close to the house, every violation of the order. We began to build a case, not only to put him behind bars, but to make sure he had no way of getting near me again. But Greg wasn't waiting for court. One Saturday afternoon, I came home to find the garage door forced open. Tools scattered. Boxes torn apart. Nothing taken. Just destroyed. On the back wall, spray painted in red. You'll never get rid of me. Ray showed up within 10 minutes. He didn't ask if I was all right. He just said one thing. It's time. We filed for a permanent restraining order. Pushed for aggravated harassment, property damage, criminal trespassing. The private investigator found evidence that Greg had slept in his truck 3 blocks from my school. He'd been following me. Watching the house. The DA took the case. Said they could charge him as a repeat offender with intent to intimidate a minor. Serious stuff. The kind of charges that stick. But before the hearing even happened, something else changed everything. My mom showed up. Unannounced. In the middle of the afternoon. I'd just gotten home from school. She was waiting on the porch, no makeup, her hair pulled back, bags under her eyes like she hadn't slept in weeks. I didn't want to talk to her. I told her to leave. She didn't. She stood there, shaking, holding a folder. Inside, divorce papers. She said she was leaving Greg. Said she had to pick a side, and she finally did. Said she was afraid for her life, afraid for mine. That she didn't know how bad things had gotten until it was too late. That the night Greg threw the rock, he told her what he'd done. That he laughed about it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know if I believed her. Then she said one more thing that stuck in my head for days. He said if he couldn't have the house, no one could. Ray came over that night. We moved everything of value out of the garage, changed all the locks again, boarded up the back windows. Just in case. Because the hearing was coming. And Greg was in a spiral. And if he really had nothing to lose, then something worse was probably coming. 3 nights before the hearing, someone lit a fire in the alley behind the house. It was small, barely reaching the edge of the fence. The fire department said it looked like it was started with a gas can and an old shirt. They put it out before it spread, but the message was clear. Greg had finally crossed the line. The cops were there in minutes. This time they didn't shrug it off. They called it attempted arson. Intent to intimidate. Possible felony. It all went up a notch. The detective even told Ray, "This one's not going away on probation." I stayed with Ray that night. I couldn't sleep. Every noise felt like a warning. Every gust of wind against the wall made me jump. Ray didn't say much, but he stayed up too. Kept the TV on. Kept his phone close. And then came the hearing. It wasn't a long trial. Everything was already stacked against Greg. The restraining order violations, the notes, the private investigator's report, the broken window, the garage incident, the fire. They had photos, timestamps, witness statements, even a voicemail Greg left on my mom's phone threatening to bring the whole place down. Greg didn't even deny it. He stood there in court, wearing a wrinkled shirt and sneakers that didn't match, and told the judge he had nothing to apologize for. Said I ruined his life? Said the house belonged to his family, now? That I was just a spoiled brat with a dead father and a grudge. The courtroom fell silent. The judge stared at him for a few seconds and then asked one thing. "Do you have anything to say before I make my ruling?" Greg didn't. He just sat back down like a deflated balloon. The ruling was immediate. Restraining order extended. Maximum penalties for the violations. Fines. Community service. If he came within 500 feet of the house, me, or Ray again, it would be automatic jail time. The arson case was still pending, but the DA had enough to move forward with or without a conviction. My mother didn't come to the hearing. She texted me afterward, "I hope this brings you peace." I didn't reply. Greg was officially out of my life. No more surprises, no more games. He was done. A month passed. No more notes. No more broken windows. No more messages. Haley never came back. My mom moved to another town, got a job at a diner, and stopped trying to reach out. The house went quiet again, but this time it didn't feel empty. It felt mine. One Saturday I finished repainting the last wall in the living room. Ray stopped by to drop off a new welcome mat. I laughed when I saw what it said. "This is still Kevin's house." We grilled burgers in the backyard that night, played some music, and didn't talk about Greg at all. For once, there was nothing hanging over us. The next morning I woke up, looked around the room that used to be Haley's, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not revenge. Not victory. Just peace. Greg had tried to take everything from me. My home, my family, my sense of security. But in the end, he walked away with nothing. And me? I got everything back. Even the house. Especially the house.